Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is now Wednesday, the 16th of April, 2025, and this is program number 1357. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. In addition to Radio 101.1 FM, you can also get us at our website. It is rcistlucia.com. We are also streaming live on Facebook, and of course, please be sure to like and share that link with your friends and family, wherever they may be. Of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also reach us on our WhatsApp. That number is 724-0008. That you can call in or you can message in on WhatsApp. And again, it is 724-0008. You want to send out some birthday greetings today to Mrs. Coretta Crooks Charles. Happy birthday to you, Coretta, and we do hope that you're having an absolutely wonderful and fantastic birthday. And also birthday greetings to Miss Marissa Stephen. Happy birthday to you and wishing you the very best on your special day. Now, some history. We go way back in time, actually. It's actually the first battle recorded with a reliable account of that battle, and it's occurred back in the year 1457 BC, the famous Battle of Megiddo, and that was between the Egyptian forces of the Pharaoh Thutmose III, and he defeated a large Canaanite coalition under the king of Kadesh. In the year 1705, Queen Anne of England knights scientist Isaac Newton at Trinity College, Cambridge. In the year 1900, on this day, the U.S. Post Office issued its first stamp booklets containing 12, 24, and 48 2-cent stamps. 1948, on this day, the Organization for European Economic Cooperation, the OEC, was formed in Paris, France. And on 2003, on this day, April the 16th, the Treaty of Accession was signed in Athens, which admitted 10 new member states to the European Union. We now head across to our dish of the day. The Daily Dish is brought you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. With all kind of tiles, come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Box, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Brusilles, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome to our program for today, this Wednesday. And of course, wishing everybody a very happy and wholesome lunch. Now, in terms of yesterday's show, we did focus quite a bit on tourism. And I just want to continue that dialogue on the matter of tourism because, of course, it is our largest economic driver on island right now, has been for some time. And of course, it is likely to continue to grow. And we are seeing a significant amount of growth in visitor accommodation, expansion of existing hotels, as well as the construction of new ones. And of course, it comes with a mixed bag of issues. Certainly, part of the challenge has been how you can ensure that our tourism is sustainable, and certainly from the perspective of the environment, which we are dealing with right about now, there are some real challenges in terms of the nature of our tourism. Very much tending to be coastal in its nature and very much about getting onto the beach and enjoying the wonderful island life, right? You want to be around the water. And of course, that has certainly in this current era of the climate crisis that we're facing, that has a lot of implications. And we are going to come in a little bit to some comments shared by a former Minister for Sustainable Development, Dr. Jimmy Fletcher, on that matter of where and where not to perhaps construct hotels. But let's just take in first a statement that was actually made regarding tourism revenue, which was being pointed out by the Deputy Prime Minister and Islands Minister for Tourism, the Honorable Dr. Ernest Hilaire. And he spoke on Monday after a cabinet press briefing, or at a cabinet press briefing, on this entire matter of tourism. And that's captured in the St. Lucia Times, just to share that story very quickly with you. St. Lucia's tourism sector continues its upward trajectory, achieving a landmark $3.5 billion in revenue last year, despite operating with 500 fewer hotel rooms. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Tourism, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, announced the milestone during a press briefing on Monday. Quote, "The total value of visitor arrivals reached 3.5 billion EC dollars, he said. Despite 500 less rooms, we were still able to have a record-breaking year in terms of arrivals." Goes on to say, he also highlighted the growing role of alternative accommodation, such as short-term rentals and homestays, in boosting local earnings. Tourism Authority data revealed that over 30,000 visitors opted for Airbnb lodgings last year. Quote, "When you translate the 30,000 persons in terms of dollar value, calculate the number of these by the average daily rate, it approximates to $79.5 million that would have been spent directly in the hands of local operators," Hilaire said. Moving forward, the ministry aims to further support community-based tourism by promoting small-scale providers and home accommodations. Quote, "Our intention this year is to be able to expand that and to really promote a collection of small dealers, as well as the home accommodation option to get more visitors," the minister said. The recent Jimmy's Awards also underscored the industry's appreciation for its workers, for its workforce, honoring the dedication of hospitality professionals. Quote, "Even if you did not win, you're still a hero," Hilaire emphasized. "You are still somebody who has made a significant contribution, and we want to celebrate you as well." The record revenue reflects the sector's robust performance, which he credited to St. Lucian hospitality workers. Quote, "The Jimmy's was created for us, the industry partners who recognize the excellence of our hospitality workers." I'm seeing a new word here, hospitalitarians. I never heard of that one before. "The real persons who go out of their way to ensure that we deliver." As preparations begin for next year's Jimmy's, Hilaire encouraged wider participation, stressing that tourism impacts extend beyond economics. It's about people. The government has resolved to continue the thrust to ensure that we get more of the money to be spent in St. Lucia and to go into the pockets of St. Lucians, he said. That story by Mr. Josiah St. Luce. And of course, we have been seeing a fair bit of investment, even from the public side, in terms of advancing the quality of the product that we actually have here in St. Lucia. And I think part of that has been witnessed in terms of improvements to various lookout sites, which of course really important in terms of ensuring that people can enjoy the spectacular views that our country affords. And so of course we've been seeing some activity and the Morn lay-by, the Morn Fortune lay-by, which I think has been for quite some time a very iconic St. Lucian view of the north of the island, the Castries Harbor and Shock Bay and beyond, and of course the new product along the Millennium Highway or Julian Alfred Highway, that of the Anse Ferré or Anse Fairway lookout, taking in a view of that coastal area, including a small arch which has enticed some persons, boat goers and swimmers and the like. So we are certainly seeing some of these types of investments in beach parks and in trying to create spaces that will provide opportunities for more individuals to actually get into the business, so to speak. And think to, for example, the investment that had been made at VG Beach, and certainly how VG Beach has become so much more vibrant and has transformed by what was a relatively small investment, but just a very well-positioned, well-placed investment, by simply providing decent beach facilities and food and beverage opportunities for individuals who go to VG Beach. Now, VG Beach is, for all intents and purposes, the most convenient beach if you are a visitor to Castries coming in via cruise. And it is certainly a very extensive beach, very beautiful beach. It's the beach of the city for all intents and purposes. And we have seen near the airport terminal side some improvement there in terms of that facility. The nice thing about that facility as well, in terms of how it was designed, was that it kept the tree canopies. It worked around the trees. It also created a raised deck so that it wasn't, in fact, impacting on the natural movement of the sand and on the beach. And so there was certainly a degree of care to try to ensure that it was well designed in that way. And we have seen since its creation certainly a rise in the number of individuals who head across there, whether they're going by they're walking on foot, or they're heading by the train that takes them there, or as well maybe by other taxis and what have you. And certainly that has allowed for a number of individuals to be able to reap more directly the benefits of the visitor spend, and ensuring that you have a better visitor experience. So that certainly is important, and creating those spaces is very much vital. I think, in fact, today there's supposed to be a sword turning ceremony on a project that's geared towards trying to deliver some of that as well, and that is the much talked about GPH, Global Port Holdings project for the enhancement of the Castries cruise port, as well as the Soufrière harbor and the facilities down there. And so that kicking off, of course, is pretty important for vendors who've been operating at the Vendors Arcade. That arcade, I think, that the new market and the arcade were built somewhere, I think, around 1993 or thereabouts. And perhaps one can say that they do need some sprucing up on both sides of that John Compton Highway in terms of that experience. And so the redevelopment of that vendors arcade, no doubt, is part of that effort to give a refresh to that product. And of course, it should be certainly more than just new buildings and putting down nice accommodations. It certainly also has to go in terms of what is actually being put forward by the product, by the individuals who will in fact be providing different products and services at this new revamped vendors arcade, because it certainly doesn't make any sense to be simply just doing this very same thing that we've been doing before. And the reality is the average cruise passenger is looking for differentiation. It's looking for something unique. They're looking for something that really will catch them. And it may not necessarily even be something to take home. There might be that in terms of merchandise, but as well in terms of the experience that one actually has within that area. I mean, for example, one of the things I remember visiting one of the cruise ports in the Caribbean once, I think it was in Belize, was that there was actually a coconut man selling fresh coconuts and with the little wooden umbrellas in it, and some may say pretty cliche, but evidently was doing very, very, very good business at that time in that cruise port. And so how do you work in some of these very important parts of our culture, parts of the experience, the food, the culinary experience is definitely something that has to be looked at. There's going to be also an attempt with this respect to the individuals at Banans. Now, that has been somewhat of an unsightly area coming into the city for the first time, and many have commented that they don't really like the look of as you've passed through the Julian Alfred Highway. And now you're into the beautiful harbor front and what have you, and it's certainly not what you may think we would be seeing just as you're entering a city. And so the attempt there as well to redevelop that area and to in fact involve the fishermen who are in that area as well into the product is certainly very, very important. I mean, we've seen how certain things like seafood can really create a whole new special line of cuisine, and it can certainly be a major pull in terms of the product. You think perhaps to Grosley Friday Night, and back in the 1980s when it all started off, and into the 90s, going to Grosley Friday Night, you generally would have been going there maybe for barbecue chicken or something like maybe barbecue pork, and then we saw the rise of seafood and the grill experiences in Grosley, and you've seen how very, very well those have been taken up by the community there to diversify the product. And so definitely this allure of being by the sea and being able to enjoy seafood caught from the sea is something that people seem to enjoy, especially if you're not coming from a coastal city, or you're not having that experience. So it is something definitely that we need to leverage towards our advantage, and to ensure that we make better use of our waterfront, to make better use of our beautiful spaces along our harbor, our beaches, and whatever the case may be. So I think we definitely have to see how our tourism product can be leveraged in that regard. I know that also as part of the Unleashing the Blue Economy project termed UBEC, there's been quite a lot of emphasis in trying to develop what are known as underwater sculpture parks. Now, the whole thinking behind those is actually, um, in a way, sort of replicating the success of what has been done in some other countries, particularly Grenada, which kind of started it off with a very amazing experience in which they created these large sculptures. And in the case of Grenada, in the first instance, I think it was really in memory of the Atlantic Passage, the Middle Passage, and the memory of the many enslaved people who were brought across from Africa to our islands, our ancestors, and of course noting that a number of them never made it across. They were lost in transmission, if you prefer to call it that. But in many instances, they died in the journeys, and they would have been thrown overboard. In fact, we know of cases as well. In the desire to be able to gain insurance money, we even have of cases where ships were deliberately lost, and individuals were deliberately thrown overboard, right, for the purposes of gaining insurance, right, and this harrowing experience of millions of people making the Middle Passage is captured in some of these monuments under the water. So effectively, these are the individuals who are still there, trapped under the water, so to speak. And so very, very interesting concept, of course, that was done in Grenada. And I think it has also been replicated in some other islands like St. Martin and St. Lucia, seeing the possibility of doing something similar. There's a gentleman who was actually ran a snuba program, and that would be to head into the water up at Pigeon Island. You head into the water with a mask on, and you can just walk in instead of necessarily having to snorkel or scuba, and try to create that sort of experience there as well. And so the idea is that you're creating these new dive locations, which are attractions in their own right, but also allow for pulling away from the congested areas in other dive sites, because dive sites are effectively very sensitive by their nature. You're speaking of especially what people want to come to see. They want to see coral reefs, and they want to see the beautiful corals, and they want to see the fish around them that are attracted to them. And so that tends to create a lot of pressure on the very popular dive sites, especially in the Soufrière area and Chassenay and the Pitos and what have you. And so if you can, in fact, create equally or at least relatively attractive dive experiences away from those pressure points, those congested areas, then it certainly would help in terms of getting people to still enjoy the beauty of the island, but also still ensuring that you're protecting and having more sustainable products, especially in terms of your sea. Now, another issue, of course, that has been very controversial about the issue of hotels. And we spoke about hotels yesterday, and we made the point that the challenge that we have, especially in the case of St. Lucia and many parts of the Caribbean, is that many of the hotels are not owned locally. In fact, one could even say the majority of the hotels are not owned locally. And in particular, speaking of the larger properties, 50 rooms and above, these properties have generally been owned by, in some instances, persons from the Caribbean, but also from further abroad. And certainly we can argue that, in the case of the Caribbean, it's good because at least if you have Caribbean owners, then to some degree there is a commitment and an understanding that there has to be good corporate social responsibility. There has to be there should be a greater appreciation of what is important to individuals and to people. But as well, in terms of how do you ensure that the profits, the benefits are reaped to its fullest, that is, of course, a really important challenge that we do need to overcome. And to me, I mean, Dr. Hilaire was making the point that yes, you need to certainly encourage the small properties, and that is an easy way to start. Certainly, it would, if you have 1,000 individuals owning a 2-bedroom unit, you have 2,000 more rooms, and these are rooms that would be owned, and it's a very democratic process in that everybody is getting a little piece of the pie in that way. Of course, there are complexities in that regard in terms of how do you ensure good standards, and how are you ensuring safety, and a lot of things that have to happen in this regard. It would also suggest that people are now going to have to be a lot more independent, and then you're going to ask yourself, well, in terms of transport, how is that really worked out? Especially when you have people who are staying in villas or they're further out of the centers. Our roads can be a bit harrowing, and so there's certainly things that need to be put in place to ensure that experience is a sort of a seamless one. There's certain reasons, for example, why countries we have seen go the route of establishing these resort communities, right? So like, you go to Mexico and they'll have a very defined area where they actually have a lot of a very dense tourism plant being present, and that goes for a lot of countries. That's how they've approached it. Cuba, you go Aruba, a lot of them are like that. And you can understand there are some benefits towards doing it that way, because you can scale up. You're also maximizing quite often what people want, and they want quite often to be close to the water. They want to be close to particular amenities, whether it's a golf course, whether it's restaurants, whether it's certain attractions. So they do want to be in certain areas. And of course, the thinking then as well is that you can ensure that the services and amenities that are necessary to be able to support those types of facilities are certainly in place. It is not going to be very helpful sometimes if you're trying to upscale particular communities, and the communities don't really have the amenities and the infrastructure to be able to provide for a proper, decent, safe experience. So there may be places that you say that people go and they want to be adventurous and they want to be backpacking, and yes, you'll have those types. But when you look at what perhaps the average tourist is looking for, that may not always fit into what would be their idea of a wonderful vacation. So you've got to be competitive in that regard, and so there is the need to have these tourism resort villages and hotspots to a certain degree. But of course, that takes investment, and that certainly takes investment that goes beyond just the hotel, but ensuring that you have everything in, the water, the utilities, whatever it is, to be able to support that type of investment. But the other issue, of course, is that of the sustainability of it and the impact on our environment, and also the impact, and that impact on the environment can be, when we think about hotels by the beach, you can be thinking about not just the risk of it, but certainly the risk of water pollution, the risk of how you deal with wastewater, right? How do you ensure that you have a sufficient amount of fresh water, and the overall use of a lot of these things has to be put in there somehow. So we're going to get to an article which was shared on St. Lucia Times in just a bit. But we'll take that up, I think, after we take in our weather report. So let's end our dish of the day right now, and then we'll come back in just a bit.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gas and vanity. Boss, you'll see. Come down, don't mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses, Grizzly Lakes, and Slack Street in Viewfort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island style.
We have tiles and king sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality rice, service choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Street, and behind Ruby's gas station on the Library Viewfort Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style. This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And for the course of the 1.1, it's now time for your weather forecast as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style, Tile and Bath. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing from the east near 21 miles per hour or 33 kilometers per hour. The weather fair skies occasionally becoming cloudy with a few showers. The forecast for the left side today is fair to occasionally cloudy skies with a few showers. And the weather summary, the Atlantic high pressure system will continue to generate moderate easterly winds across the Eastern Caribbean region during the next few days. Shallow patches of low-level clouds drifting along the wind flow will cause a few showers over the region during the next 24 hours. And this was your weather forecast as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style, Tile and Bath.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island Style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island Style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island Style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island Style.
We have tiles and king sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality rice, service choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Street, and behind Ruby's gas station on the Library Viewfort Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, We would love to hear that, and you can do so by calling in to 452-3046, as well as our WhatsApp 724-0008. Let's go to the phone lines at this time. Good afternoon, and welcome to the lunchroom. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. George.
How are you doing, caller?
It's only me that day. Yes, not too bad.
Wonderful.
Right. Let me see. We'll have to choke point. Banana Bay.
Yes.
Yes. They said, was there gold pot, gold holding or whatever. They will build Banana Bay. But Banana Bay, just lower down Banana Bay, we had that place we used to call Lansalopui. The place was so dirty because everything that drifts down the harbor will end up there, and dead animal, anything.
Yes.
But I think they do something. I think is that the part Renault hole there.
Okay.
They said Renault going to build that part. Now a stone throw up the road. That's full of show.
Yes.
First impression, last impression.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes.
And then, that's a very, very busy traffic. Just by the roadside there, because Banana Bay don't have a lot of land to do anything really, prestige.
Mm.
If you want to do something real nice, they don't have the land there to do it.
You're talking about, well, there's a fair bit of land there. I mean, well, that area had been reclaimed, and it probably was still in works, in reclamation, I should say. And perhaps there can even be even further reclamation in that area. As far as I know, they're not looking to do anything beyond that. And the approach
but you don't have the space. You don't have the land to really build anything, as I just finished saying, real prestige.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much. They seem to be doing something. I think it's roughly about maybe 3.5 acres.
How big?
It's about 3.5 acres, that area. I'm not even too sure that
if it carry, well, probably, I don't know the full size of it, but if it's 3.5, that's big enough to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even too sure that they're actually utilizing the entire space there either.
Yeah.
But I mean, the point that you're making is that, in fact, there have been proposals to look at that entire section from almost the mouth of the Castries River, right, where you have the old banana dock, right, and looking straight down towards the other point that you were just talking about. I think it's called Coco's Point. So that to develop that as a whole new berthing area for large vessels. So you could probably certainly get maybe 2 very large vessels, Oasis class vessels, and that location.
Vessels if they had finished the dock.
Well, yeah. So I mean, as of now,
if you have to go to the point, right down to the point,
right.
You see, but we cannot do it anymore because part of that land is sold. A woman buy it, they had a lot of say about it. A part of that land, and then you have Renault higher up. So instead they do like when they was developing the dock.
The government can always. The government has the right of compulsory acquisition, under the Acquisition Act.
I agree with that.
They can always. They can always decide to acquire.
Once you pay the people what they pay for it, it's okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely.
But don't stay. Like when I heard they were selling capacity, that was 50 cents a square foot, and now it's 40 Yankee dollars.
Yes, in some parts it's as high as that. Certainly, I think certainly in the Cabot development, it's pretty high.
Not America. We are not in America. Where the heck you have to buy land with American money?
Well, that's
a kind of thieving.
That's the price that they're quoting because they're quoting it for an international market, caller. That's what's going on. So they're pitching it at a to the point of what I suppose people would understand. And so that's why they're quoting it in US dollars.
But that area there is a very busy area as well. The traffic going on that road there.
The Latok Road,
as
yes.
they call it right now.
Latok Road, yes. You're right. And certainly there is.
That is a lot of traffic.
Yes, that is very correct. And I think that is part of the challenge with Castries in and of itself, that Castries does not really have a proper bypass, right? You do have a means of sort of bypassing it if you go from Shock into Union, Balata, Mondudor, then up to Bocage, Tiroche, and then you come down Kachime into Deglo, right, and back into the Cul-de-Sac Valley. But it still is. I mean, obviously that's a road that was built very, very long ago. The alignments are not very good, and it's winding and it's steep, and so it's definitely something that.
In my days, most of those roads you're talking there, that was dirt road,
I'm sure.
No tarmac,
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. Yeah. So right. So it's clearly. Yeah, I mean they've gotten much better since they were at that stage long ago, but they're still not really at a standard that would be allow for a reasonably easy, comfortable drive for the majority of road users, of commuters. So yeah, we definitely do need a bypass of Castries so that all the traffic that's heading north-south does not have to pass through the city center as it is right now. You pretty much, besides that other road, you don't have a very
and
easy
we can
drive.
say by lengthening the dock right down to the harbor mouth, that can take 2 or 3 ships. That will take 3 ships. That finished already, because Sanders. That's where we used to call Yellow Sun. That's where Sanders is now.
Well, you're right.
That will become
part
of Sanders.
That's much further. That's beyond Tapio. Are you talking about? Yeah.
Tapio. Yeah, but Sanders come to right down to the sea. Yellow Sun. Because that's Banana Bay. That's Latok.
But there's a whole ridge in between, eh? There's a whole area of Tapio and Latok.
Lengthen the harbor wharf, you have to go through Sanders.
Well, I don't think so. You wouldn't have to necessarily do that. Because Sanders is a completely different bay, right? It's south of the island. You would not necessarily have to get into the Sanders area. But also remember that the focus has been, or the idea has been, to try to get the Castries harbor itself to be just dedicated for cruise vessels, and
but he was talking about a walkway as well.
Yes, so there's supposed to also be a boardwalk.
A boardwalk
enhancement of the walk from the bridge,
so that
from the Sanssouci bridge
walk
down
all the way down. You walk the way. But I think a lot of the things they're thinking for that place now, it's a bit too late.
So it's a bit too
late.
Too late. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because other people already come in investing the money, and it'll cost an arm and a leg to do it right now. But the little place, the Banana Bay, they can do what they best. Because one time I was building the whole Castries, and I tell you, Banana Bay is a place you want like an English style pub and bench. You want some bench table where people could sit down, the tourists could sit down and refresh themselves, drink a couple pints.
Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned
something real nice there.
You mentioned Salopui. Was the location where you saying for the past Banana, or was it where
as soon as you leave Banan Bay.
Because I saw on an old map.
Behind Banan Bay.
Yes.
That's where Reno.
Right, I understand that part, but I saw on an old map that it was actually located effectively where has now been reclaimed at around Fuasho. I no. So that area was never called that.
Let's look with just in the back of Reno or part of what Reno have there.
Okay, all right then. Very well.
Anyway, good afternoon.
Okay, thanks very much for that contribution, caller. Have a good one. And of course, no doubt, the debate on what Castries needs is certainly a very healthy one to have. Let's take another call at this time. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lunchroom. And what's on your plate today?
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. I forget it.
George.
Mr. What?
George.
Okay. So let me give a suggestion because you see, there is something we have to know if it is what that was Kenyan to me, what have to stopping people for distilling all the what we call it, the marigo.
You talking about the river sand?
Yes.
Okay.
And the idea was because people was use the sun as it come out from the sea because you know the sun has salt because affecting the cement.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they pass it in law on that day. But I want to anybody can call and see if they have it in law in place. That means people
there are laws.
They're gonna change it.
There is a law regarding sand mining. Yes.
Yeah, exactly right. So now we can be mining by government. Good. So what government have to do now? Let me give you an idea because I watch in developing world have ideas when one thing don't work, they do another. Now, what I believe government is going to do now, as they have the law of sand mining, they have to create a way like to give in the contractors the incentive themselves to distill those marigold. We can name them from the one from where the ones go direct to the sea. And we can a number of them I can name. To distill them marigolds so them river can be moved, be active. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm not sure that necessarily. I mean, what are you trying to solve? A flooding problem? Is that what you?
That's exactly. So I can give.
I mean, I'm not sure that those areas necessarily have to be desilted because what happens in any case is that the force of the water will break through, and I mean, right? So when you open up the mouths, you're also going to have it has a reverse impact too, so that the salt water goes up, and you can actually have salt intrusion in terms of your agricultural lands as well. So you have an area of brackish water where you have a mix.
I understand. But I have understood the one I just mentioned. I make it the shorter is the one from where they want to go down direct in by the sea. I didn't know they have a.
You mean where there's a swamp there? You're talking about François Beach?
No, when you live by where they have the tire shop there, the company tire shop, and they also have Sir William must have a concrete.
Right, so the Bois Industrial Estate. Yes.
Yes. So when you go down straight, if you take it, if you pass in by.
Right, so you go straight down that road you're talking about.
Yes, if you pass by Winterma, you see they have a beach. So that's my mind. That's why all Bois was filtered 2 years ago of the stuff we'll have.
But I'm not sure that I don't think that's the reason why Bois was flooded. The issue that you've had is really higher up. It's higher so more in the Corinth area, right? And what you've had in some instances is that the river there is pretty narrow. It doesn't have the capacity around there, so that's where it tends to sort of overflow its banks. It's not a situation of the water getting down into the swamp and then backing up.
Exactly.
It's not. That's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. It's not quite. In fact, what happens is that it gets into a narrow point and constrained point, and what you've seen too is that in some parts people have built up. They've created sort of like levees to protect their own property,
Yes, because the whole path is a swamp. When you leave the sea to going up, where the ones to take it out, you follow the stream to go back.
Yeah,
it is a whole swamp.
No, but that valley is an interesting valley. It kind of it's broad in the Corinth area, and then it kind of narrows a little bit.
Yes.
Near
Yes,
around.
but the narrow you mentioned, to my mind, is the narrow going up. We're talking about when the water flow into the sea.
Yeah, but that's what I'm. No, but that's
so
what I'm saying.
But
that's not the problem. That's not the problem. You're not getting water backing up from all that distance, into, because in fact, what the thing about that area is that you actually have a floodplain. There is a natural floodplain, past that same area that you're talking about, the Bois swamp, which naturally floods.
All right. So let me make another session a little faster. There is something I track in, Mr. Is we need to open our eyes on YouTube and Facebook to see what's happening in Africa about agriculture, because our agriculture, it is left in the dark. And I watching the agriculture system we have here. We don't have machine to plow in the land. We don't have better land. Let me see.
Sorry, better land what?
We have better land, but we don't have the system in place. To my mind, maybe I have to be on TV to mention that, maybe people to see the error the Ministry of Agriculture don't see. We don't have enough, like what do you call it? We can make in place to have, like, I used to see Windburn used to have doing things a long time ago. They have some pond, some big drums, but they have them being concrete to hold water. And I see all the bananas, mostly Christian taken from Roseau to go in only 24. All the bananas, they're looking dry, and they have a lot of drain. Somebody has to come in with ideas of making agriculture sustain, to not say climate change, and then we have all the rivers around where we can create a method.
No, I take your point, and I think there were investments that have been made in places like Roseau as well as in Cul-de-sac, where ponds were constructed. And I'm not even too sure that these ponds are generally being utilized by the majority of farmers.
I see, Mister. I see, but I tell you what they do. They have a machine and they have a pond, but they're not giving the farmer the water. The farmer has to go in and tell you that why they have a system of water that's not working. That's why I tell you, maybe they have to split in agriculture in half to show them that is what to look for. To me,
I don't know. It would be useful to find out, because I don't even know who manages those funds.
And you and you as the media, as people like you there delivering information and collecting information. You're supposed to have this information in front of you so you can give it to us, so you can see what knowledge people don't have. Because the radio is to entertain and educating.
I'll try to find out.
And you're working.
I'll try to find out precisely how
Anytime
those
you're taking
managed.
a walk or you're taking a drive by the Roseau, by the distillery opposite there, you can see they have a pond. And you can see all the head of the standpipe where the farmers get the water. Anyone not
just
working.
Recently,
or they have a special organization dealing with that matter, and it's not working.
Yeah, I mean, it is a serious water issue in terms of ensuring that farms have water, because just recently, the government, through that same UBEC project I had mentioned with respect to
because we have enough river. We have enough river.
They had provided, I think, like nearly 2,000 water tanks to farmers around the island.
I get that part. They try to assist them to have water tanks. But the water tank is important to store in water. But we have river where we can put it underground water. They call it, I forget the name they call it. So we store water.
Groundwater?
The name is well water.
Wells,
so
right,
they have
groundwater.
Well water when it's then dry season.
I don't know how much. Well, that's maybe a debate as well in terms of some of the areas where we can get. But it does cost. It does cost to build those wells. You have to drill.
It will not cost. It will cheaper. Let me explain. Cheap because we have sun, we have wind, we have wind energy now. We have sun, we have all the where we can have machine used by sun. We have wind when you can get current. So we have no excuse.
No, but what I'm
If
saying
the
is that
system,
you still have to drill for the water. You still have to
and the
dig
well,
the
of course,
wells.
we have enough
So
excavator
it's not
and give it concrete. Yes,
right. So there are costs in terms of that. I mean,
that's not
and you
no
also
cost for
have
the
to
season we have dry season.
and
Not a cost.
I mean obviously you have to do the proper survey, the morphological,
Yes,
hydrological
you know what?
surveys to
You know
find
what
out
I
where's
believe?
the best place to put
You know
those
what?
wells.
You know the same way we're
Now,
talking. I see it hard, but I believe one man has to start it first, and the government will follow. To my knowledge, because I see not a long task.
but
But if
but
we
the
continue talking
water
about
the
it, you know,
water is the water situation is certainly a major one for I mean the Marquis Valley, for example. There are a number of farmers who engage in exactly what you're talking about. They abstract water from the
Babulo is
Marquis River,
100%. I see it to myself.
and that river, the flows are very low as a result of a lot of the abstraction that is going on there.
Yes, so that
So
is low.
so
We
so
prepared
we
it.
do have to think about the water security within the agriculture sector. It is, I mean, and especially as we're talking about climate
Yes,
change, it is certainly
if I have
a
to,
threat.
if I had to explain, we cannot have no shortage of water. We know April, and between December, we start getting cold and they start to get to dry season. We're using all the river as a system in place to store thousands of gallons of water in a safety way. We have to have all we're talking about there, sister. We need a science, somebody that are prepared can say that place is very good, but you can block the water so, and we put a way to store thousands of water, and then when this season open, we disperse the water back.
A lot of the work, a lot of the work,
say you're working.
a lot of the work was done in the past, Caller.
Yes.
There've been many
So let me
studies
give,
that were done. Okay, thanks very much, caller, for that
right.
contribution. You know, you can end that call. I know that there was, I think the OAS had done some work looking at that back in the 1980s and looking at the doing maps for those water catchments, watersheds, and there were in fact recommendations regarding certain areas that should have been afforested to improve on the condition of the watersheds, and particularly there's a challenge in the north of the island because the north of the island is drier on average, and so there were suggestions as to looking at the upper areas of the Dauphin River to be able to do some of that to support the water demands, and the Marquis River as well. But of course, we've also seen as a result of development, some of those catchments have been lost. The Mornier one, for example. So it is a challenge to be able to support the amount of growth that we're seeing in these areas. And then of course I know there'll be people who will be suggesting let's look at groundwater, let's look at desalination. But that just know as well though, that especially desal, it's going to come at a cost, especially so that the unit cost of the water is going to certainly be far more than what we have now. As to whether it makes more sense to see whether you can now create extended piping of water from other catchments to bring it north. Is that a better option? There's a lot of analysis that would have to be looked at in the medium to long term in terms of the water requirements for growth and development in the north of the island especially. But I'm saying the north, but then the south also has its very own challenges and attempts made over the years to try to improve on some of those in terms of the Dennery water supply, the Miku Dairy So water supply, the VA4 water supply. But of course, it might be sufficient for now. But if we're talking about a significant amount of investment coming in those areas, certainly we have to be thinking about how those can in fact be supported as well. There was work done in terms of feasibility studies for a dam in the south of the island. I think that looked at about 5 different watersheds and different potential locations for dams for the south, including on the V4 River, including looking at the Canals River and the Trumasse River. And what was deemed the best option was, in fact, a dam on the Trumasse River in the upper reaches of the Trumasse River near Quiles. But of course, a significant amount of money has to be put into such a project. And you can only well imagine, I think at the time, the estimated cost of that dam was about $200 million. And that's well over 25 years ago when that study was done, I believe. So you can just throw in your inflation calculator and figure out what it might very well cost in today's money. And of course, is it important? Vitally important, certainly in the long term. But definitely the resources have to be raised to be able to tackle some of these major long-term national imperatives. That's our program for today. And of course, we'll be back again tomorrow, God willing, for another one. It'll be a final program for the week. Of course, it's a short week because we've got Good Friday coming up this week. So we do hope that you have a very blessed day. I'm your host, Calix Shaw Jr., saying goodbye.